I'm Bob Mascali, and this is Planning for the Future. Today is March 24th, and we are here in the wonderful studios of Falmouth Community TV. Before we start, I'd like to thank Deb Rogers, Bob Fenstermaker, and all of the dedicated staff and volunteers at FCTV for all that they do for the community, and in particular allowing me to do this program. This is actually the 6th program we've done in the series, Planning for the Future, exploring issues that we all face as we plan for the future, be it young or old. We are all, in effect, planning for the future. In the past, we've done programs on Social Security and retirement, Alzheimer's, dealing with helping individuals with disabilities and caring for them. And our last program was on accessory dwelling units here in Falmouth and how they can help people plan for the future and age in place. You can find prior programs on the YouTube channel, searching Planning for the Future Falmouth, and you can put in my name, Robert Mascali, and you should be able to find them. Today, I'm pleased to have with me Allan Wilson and Carissa April, both of whom are veterans and involved with Joe Q Veteran Break, Inc., and they're going to talk a little bit about that. So welcome to both of you, and thank you for your service. I'm going to start with Carissa and just ask you to give a little bit of your background and how you come to Joe Q in particular.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Bob.
Sure.
So I first came to Falmouth in 1996, thanks to the Coast Guard. I was in the Coast Guard, and in 1996 I was stationed on Monomoy, one of the cutters in Woods Hole, as the executive officer. And during the course of that tour, toward the end of that tour, I met a local and got married, and didn't know then, but that was the beginning of living in Falmouth for what appears to be the rest of my life. So joined the community then, and in the meantime, I stayed in the Coast Guard and carried out my 23-year career. I was stationed in Boston, Washington, D.C., Kodiak, Alaska, and here on Cape twice, actually, two tours on Cape Cod. And so I found myself making life here, and a really lucky choice. I feel like that was a really lucky assignment coming to Cape Cod. Both kids were born here. I have 2 children that are in high school and college now, and born here, and it's just been an incredible community to be part of for over 25 years now. And I'm serving as the chair of the Veterans Council for the town. I'm a town meeting member, and I've been serving on the NOBSCA, Friends of NOBSCA board for a little while and working on that project. So lots of ways that I think there are to be involved in the community, and so the most recent one, I guess, in the last couple of years has been with Joe Q Veteran Coffee Break. And I joined the group. I came in at a time when we were really just getting going and doing some foundational decision making and documents and things like that. And we've done so much in just a few short years. So we're just moving ahead quickly in all these different directions.
Okay, before we go, I do want to just ask you, because you mentioned the Veterans Council. Could you just tell us a little bit about what that is, what you do there, and who's part of it?
Sure. So the town of Falmouth has many councils and committees that help with all the governing, right, that help advise the town officials in what needs to happen in certain areas. So the Veterans Council has, I think there are 6 official seats of members that are the veteran organizations, AMVETS, the VFW, DAV, ELKS, Joe Q Veteran Coffee Break, and the Falmouth Military Support Group. And I certainly hope I haven't left anybody off on the spot. But and there are also some at-large members, and the select board approves all of those appointments to the volunteer council. We meet monthly and just try to advise the town on the best way to make sure that veterans are being served in the community. So one of probably the 2 biggest functions that we have are making sure that the two annual ceremonies on the town lawn, the library lawn, go off nicely, the Memorial Day ceremony and the Veterans Day ceremony. And then at the holidays, there's been a tradition of delivering packages to veterans in nursing homes, Falmouth area veterans in nursing homes, and some other little, projects like that around the calendar year.
Some great work, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, now, and I should mention, although there's probably a graphic when Carissa's speaking, but she is the vice president of Joe Q Veteran Break, Inc. And now we can get to meet the president of Joe Q Veteran Break, Inc., my very good friend, Allan Wilson. Not that Carissa's not my very good friend as well, but Allan Wilson. So Allan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
First of all, I want to thank you and Falmouth Public TV for being here. And it's my pleasure to be here representing a very dedicated and committed group of people who want to help veterans. My background is varied in a lot of different ways. I came here with my wife. I actually bought our property in 2002, and we moved in officially 2013, 2014. And my service commitment was in the Army National Guard. I'm a Vietnam era veteran, and unfortunately I got hurt on training mission before I was deployed in Vietnam. So I never actually went over there. And I came back and was able to serve in the military as a biological chemical warfare trainee.
Where was that service?
I was doing that in Maine.
Okay.
And my job was to go throughout the whole area and train people what to do in case they were involved in chemical biological warfare, which at that time was completely different from where it is right now, but very challenging to do.
Sure.
But I enjoyed that part of it. And then prior to that, I was involved in coaching and teaching at the University of Hartford. I ended up coaching lacrosse, soccer, and basketball a lot of years in Division I and Division II. And then I moved into a position of Director of Development at Bancroft School in Worcester, Mass., which has a lot of strong connections with West Falmouth. There's a lot of people from Bancroft School in West Falmouth. And so I was here a number of times for different types of functions. And then after that, I had the pleasure of working with Mr. Paul Newman. A lot of people will know that, but I worked as his Director of Development for the Hole in Walgate camp for almost 8 years. And enjoyed that thoroughly, although I must admit I didn't see my wife or my family that much because we were traveling and I was in New York, and frankly, wherever Paula went, I was close behind.
Well,
but it was a great experience and one of the true great Americans that I've ever met in my life. And then I went out to be Director of Development of an autistic school in New York called Green Chimneys. And I learned what it is to be an autistic child and how to handle that, which I thought was incredible. And then I became Executive Director of an award-winning diversity program in Connecticut called the Discovery Center. And so, after that, we came back here and lived and enjoyed the atmosphere here. I have 3 daughters. All 3 are married and gainfully employed, and which is a big thing in our world. And really have enjoyed living in Falmouth and got to be involved with veterans and veterans activities when I first got here in 2014.
Well, it says something about you that I've known you since I came to town, probably around that same time, 2011, 12. And I don't think I've ever heard you speak about Paul Newman. It's, I mean, if I had worked with Paul Newman, that's all you would have heard about. So it just shows your humility, which anyone who knows you knows that you are humble. And you're both involved in organizations. I have the pleasure of serving with Carissa with the Friends of Mascali, and I had the honor of succeeding Allan as president of the Rotary Club of Falmouth. So in addition to your involvement with the veterans, you're also involved in a number of other organizations here in town.
Thanks so
So
much,
again, thank you very much for your service. So now we'll just kind of throw it open and some questions. But I think that the threshold question is about how many veterans do you estimate are living here in Falmouth?
That's a good question, because I called Mike Palmer today
Oh.
and had a nice long conversation with him.
Okay,
All right, so Mike, in a nice way, says, we don't really know. I'm going to give you an estimate.
okay.
All right, so the estimate is 1,973, but he
That's a
gave,
pretty specific estimate.
yeah, and I said, Mike, can I use that on TV? And he said, I don't know, maybe you say the word approximate.
Okay.
So that's approximate, all right, with what we have. And obviously, he admitted that during the summer, spring, and the fall, that doubles or triples. The other important factor is that Ed Van Kuren, who used to be on our board and our treasurer, did an analysis probably about 6 years ago and found out that there are 563 businesses owned by veterans. So frankly, the veterans community have a very significant presence in Falmouth and the area. So that does not include family members.
I was just going to say, plus you add the family members and the children of veterans.
Family
all
members.
Of whom, come under the umbrella of your services, I assume.
Yeah, we've learned that even while we have started this project, that the tangential relationships between people from Falmouth to Mashpee to Bourne to Sandwich, there's an incredible network of support and veterans in those areas. They all know each other, they all work together with each other, and they all stay connected. So we really look at a very, very prominent portion of the population that are what I call veteran related, which really is a real driving force between why this is so important.
Well, we're going to dig down deep as to the different services that you offer to the veterans and their families.
If I
Yes,
can, Bob,
Carissa,
one of the
please.
things that's really tough about having an answer to that number is that, the town has numbers based on people who have identified themselves
Right.
as veterans. We did a survey a couple of years ago now, but at the beginning of this project, and we were just looking for people who are veterans or have a family connection to the military to answer our survey, and we ran into so many people who said, well, I was in the military, but they don't consider themselves, they don't think of themselves as veterans. It's such an interesting sort of a juxtaposition of thought that, people who serve in the military serve to serve, and they don't serve to get out and then claim their service, this title. And so there are people who say, well, I was in the military, but it was only 4 years, so I'm not really a veteran. I'm a veteran, but I don't need to claim any status because I wasn't injured. I didn't serve in combat. I never deployed. There's so many sort of, modifications and that modesty that you're speaking of that keeps people from saying, I'm a veteran and I want to come in and get services. What we hope is that anyone who has that connection to the military also realizes that they have a lot to give, and sometimes you come in, just to give, and maybe you get a little something out of it, but you can be there for a lot of things, for camaraderie and fellowship just as much.
I mean, thank you so much for clarifying that, because honestly, I was mulling over in my head, and I was going to ask that question, what do you consider a veteran? Because I would consider a veteran anyone who was in service for, a day and a half, and whatever, reason they were no longer, if it was a very short duration. And, and I know, for instance, like Veterans Aid and Attendance, that's, offered through the Veterans Administration. There's specific requirements as to when you served and so forth.
Right.
But your umbrella is anyone who served, in any of the services. So thank you very much for clarifying that.
No, it's very good.
So I guess we'll get right to the heart of Joe Q Veteran Break Inc., which these pictures behind us are the center that Allan and Carissa will talk about is really right across the street from from where we are right now. Actually, we were waiting for an easel, and Carissa just walked across the street and picked one up for us. So that's where we are. So if anyone is interested in stopping along anyway and seeing where it is, that's where it is. So, Allan, how did Joe Q come to be?
Joe Q was named after a very passionate veteran and also supporter of veterans, Joe Contigliani. Joe was an iconic personality in the town. He was a Boy Scout leader. He was a member of the fire department. He was very active in a lot of veterans organizations. He was commander of the DAV, and he was just everywhere working in different parts of the community. I got to know him because he and I worked with another veterans organization, Cape and Islands Veterans Outreach in Hyannis. I was working as a combination advisor, counselor, and also consultant. And I was really involved in trying to help them fund certain projects. And I got to know Joe through various meetings. So we got talking about our third meeting together, and he simply started with, hey, Joe said to me, I don't understand why I'm driving all this way to help the people in Hyannis. And I said, Joe, maybe we should just focus on Falmouth. So that started a conversation that lasted another couple of weeks. And then Joe had the idea of doing coffee breaks, and he had already started doing those where veterans would come in and have coffee and talk.
Over at the Cape Cod Bagel, right?
And the Cape Cod Bagel.
That's where I first learned the Joe Q, right?
And so we were there, and he started that. I started helping him out in 2016, and then we started adding people to it. We had different presentations come in, all about health and welfare. We had State Representative Dave Vieira come in, and frankly, it became its own life. Mm-hmm. And we, at the same time, Joe had a skill set where he could talk to veterans like no one else. He could sit down and go through all of the whatever they had problems with and get to the bottom line and have them fill out the right paperwork. So he did that a lot. So we became aware of that impact by just having a presentation, having coffee, having a little bit of socialization, getting to talk to them in a way that they understood. And he really significantly helped. I know of 3 veterans that their lives changed totally because of what Joe advised them to do. Mm-hmm. So Joe and we started working on it. It was his vision. At that time, there was conversations about a new senior center. So he would say, okay, wouldn't it be great if we took the old senior center and made it into a veteran center? And then at that time, we weren't really taking him too seriously. And then eventually we came to the point that, well, that's not a bad idea. Let's do that. All right. So unfortunately, Joe passed away in 2018 rather abruptly and suddenly. And then after that, a group of people who were passionate about his feelings got together and started working on formalizing, becoming a 501c3, getting accredited, writing the bylaws. And there are still members on our board that are still part of that whole effort. So in 2020, we became our 501c3 and have since been updated that in 2022. And here we are. We're looking at a brand new facility to service, hopefully, many veterans and their family members in the years to come.
Do you anticipate that it would only be Falmouth veterans that you would be offering services
Right
to?
now, I would say because of what our experiences with the survey and other types of things, there will be crossovers. Mm-hmm. We found that a lot of family members who had an uncle or an aunt or their parents grew up in Falmouth moved to Mashpee, mm-hmm. Or moved to Bourne, moved to Sandwich, and there's a lot of crossovers with that whole piece. And there's still a lot of people in Falmouth. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not going to be a situation where we're not going to help people. I think the bottom line, there's a lot going on with veterans today. It's a whole new world out there with veteran services and Veterans Administration. There really needs to be an uptick in our ability to serve veterans in the town of Falmouth, and we're all working to do that. It's really important that we do it, I think.
Now, Carissa, when you mentioned your chairmanship of the Veterans Council, you mentioned some of the other groups in town, AMVETS, VFW, and so forth. What is it, do you think, that kind of sets Joe Q apart from those other organizations? I think you're more service-oriented. You're trying to maybe get some of the veterans some more help that they may need.
Well, I think with the exception of Falmouth Military Support Group, which was a pretty distinct mission, the others are national service organizations. So they have, those are organizations that have memberships across the country, and they have certain requirements for membership certain types of service or, that kind of thing, and service at all. So a spouse couldn't be a member of AMVETS if they were not a service member. So what's different really is that it's a grassroots organization. It's a local organization.
Right,
it's an organization for veterans and their families by veterans and their families. So our board and our advisory council are made up of not just veterans, but also children, adult children of veterans, people who lived military childhoods and have connections to the military today. So I think that's the biggest difference. Is certainly we're new. We're sort of the new kid on the block, and because of that, our mission is very local, and still grassroots. And we want to really build out that veteran community in a less defined way. And so if whether we're not going to be credentialing at the door, if we're connecting someone to services with the VA, then of course they're going to have the right credentials, right, to get the VA to provide services. But I think in terms of being welcome in the Falmouth Community Veteran Center, it's a community center first. It's a veteran center because we're trying to build that veteran community, a place where veterans and their families, people with a military connection, just feel like that's where they belong and feel like these are people they can relate to. There's so much about shared experience that people, find that fellowship around. So I think that's sort of part of the reason that we're approaching this with an open, very welcoming kind of open door. If you think you belong here, you probably do. We'll see how that goes. We prove a concept and we show that, wow, this is really important and valuable, and we can't, we're busting at the seams. We may have to take another look at, who can come in and look at the job site or play a game of pool or.
So why don't you, both, talk about what's actually your vision for what you're doing? What kind of services are you providing? Counseling, education, vocation? I mean, the gamut, right?
Yes, all of that. Yeah.
So talk a little bit about the
Carissa, why don't you
specifics
start?
of
I'll
it.
add.
Sure. So we did use that survey a few years ago to say, what do you think we need? If we have this veterans center, what would we do there? And so I think that the resounding response was fellowship. So I think just having a place to meet. And so meetings, there are other organizations already in town who've said they'd be interested in using the space to hold meetings. So it'll be a meeting space. To that end, so we also want to have a kitchen where we can have, whether we do cooking demonstrations or lessons, whether we have a sort of a catered, availability of getting a cup of coffee, right? I mean, it's all sort of, this is all, founded in having a cup of coffee together. Education and technology center, so we want to have a place where people can get up against a computer and a monitor and get a little help furthering education with adult education, applying for jobs, getting job finding assistance and things like that. Health and wellness, any number of programs that could happen, in a health and wellness space, and then just, sort of circles back to camaraderie. Have a place to sit with a book or play a game of pool with a new friend or with some old friends. And then there's really a lot of, we sort of build it, and we have plenty of ideas about what can happen there, and just kind of see how those take shape. We're really looking forward to partnering with existing organizations in town there's so many in Falmouth, right? So many organizations with services. And what we really want to try to do is not recreate those, but connect veterans and their families to those services that already exist if they don't feel comfortable doing that already because of that shared experience. Do I belong here? So if we can, make a place where they feel like they belong and then connect them to those services that already exist, that's, sort of our perfect world.
Well, let's talk about the mothership here and
The mothership, baby.
Your project, because at this point it's all anticipatory. I mean, right?
Well,
what are you doing now? You're still offering services and
We have been active on all fronts. Before I start getting into that, I just want to give another example. We have an incredible group of volunteers on our board who have put in incredible hours, both in terms of planning, but also in terms of execution. I don't know if everybody can see the details of the diagrams behind us. So if anybody wants to get a closer look, we'd be happy to do that by going to our website, giving us a quick email. We are been actively involved. We've had tremendous support from key people in the community, particularly starting with our architects, Keeney and Kenny. And then Mike Duffany is our consultant and working in, and we've had incredible donations from groups like Fraser Construction, and they've all come forward and voluntarily helped us either financially or by gifts in kind. And all of this is a product of trying to get to the point. I think the thing that we want to do is to use first class as our goal. We want a first class facility. If you have a first class education system in Falmouth, we should have a first class veteran center. If you have a first class senior center, we should have a first class veteran center. And that's put us in a position where we want to go, if we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it right the first time. And this is a reflection of all of that in the back. And then it's gonna take time. It's not rushing to the altar right off the bat, all right, but we're about, I'm guessing maybe, Carissa, maybe 40% done, 45% done. We just had a great build out with 12 different contractors in the building last Wednesday that build out the interior. And the volunteerism and the support for what we're doing, in my opinion, from somebody that's been involved with nonprofits for a long time, has just been phenomenal. It really has. And we're new. I mean, we're not, somebody that's been on the block for a long time. So everything is word of mouth. Everything is showing people what our diagrams are and going from there. We do have opportunities for people to get involved in whatever capacity they want to help it. I can't understate the passion. This is what drives us. It's the passion drives us. And we're going to get there. We have to go through the process with the town. Carissa is an expert on handling all of the other things with the town, but she does that. But we're going to get through that. And when we get done, we don't know exactly when that's going to be, but we're going to have a goal is to have a first-class facility.
So, but right now, without the facility and without the location for people to come to, what are some of the things you're able to do for veterans and their families now?
Well, really, because the last year and a half as soon as we got the lease for the building, that became 90% of our work. It's a small group, and that's really where we had to put all of our focus. But we do have a scholarship program. We've been awarding 2 scholarships a year for up to 4 years for Falmouth area high school seniors when they graduate. Last year we gave 3.
Children of veterans?
Yes.
Children of veterans?
Military, veteran
right. Okay.
children in Falmouth. Live in Falmouth, high school seniors graduating. So we gave 2 the first year, 3 the next year, and then we'll give 2 or 3 this year. And then each year they can reapply for 4 years. So that's been a significant program. We held a bocce tournament, which was certainly a fundraiser, but also kind of keeping the annual bocce tournament happening in Falmouth. Right. We're doing some fun things. And then additionally, it's kind of a construction site as of last week. It's a little, but prior to that, Mass Hire was coming in once a month and having an open day of meeting with people. The Vet Center, which is a VA program in Hyannis, the Vet Center has been setting up to do a day a month here in Falmouth, and they're doing great things in Hyannis, but you have to drive all the way to Hyannis, and the transportation is a challenge for a lot of people. And so being able to bring it here to Falmouth and have those things happening here will be just priceless.
So right now, where is the here, since this is?
It's not.
So, but if
Mass Hire was coming, and then we kind of tore up the office. There's walls and
so as you're progressing with construction,
we're just taking a little bit of a construction break. But when we get that zipped up, we have new flooring coming in. We'll have to do some finished walls. Clean all that up from the recent construction. We did reconfigure the floor plan a little bit. The big remaining projects that we would really love to be able to do, one of them is the restroom facilities, which are severely out of date, not well laid out, not what you expect today when you walk into a modern public facility. And then the kitchen, the kitchen's just also dated, and it does fine for what we want to do right now, but we'd love to see, an updated catering kitchen where we could do some cooking demonstrations and lessons and things like that, and kind of open up the, the options for what we can do there.
Mhm.
So on an individual basis, we have got contacts with people who need help. In fact, a week ago, we had someone stop in, a veteran, older, wanted information, and we were able to help him get him in the right place. We have
So you can help people who
We are
are in
doing
need
it.
of some service, they can reach you. And we should mention what the website is,
joeqveterancoffee.org.
Okay.
So, and we're also have been involved with Belonging to Each Other,
Mhm.
which is a nonprofit that's really been an immense support for homeless people in Falmouth. And so we've helped people silently through that program.
And
All right.
so I'm sure there's some veterans who are homeless as well.
Oh,
that you-
absolutely.
Oh,
that you
yeah. No
Absolutely.
Are
question.
helping as well,
Yeah.
through your collaboration with
It's
BTEO. and so
basically, if we know about a veteran, we're going to try and do whatever we can to help.
Mhm.
And a lot of our board members and advisory councils do that on their own.
Mhm.
And it's been, I hear about it secondhand or thirdhand, but basically it's ongoing as we go through
Mhm.
the year.
Okay.
So,
Let me just look at my notes here for a second. Here, let me just see. So what will be in the building and how it will be designed? You want to just give a brief update?
yeah, I think Carissa's the expert on the,
All right.
it's right behind where she is. If you could get the camera on that, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, so the Education and Technology Center, which also sort of provides a board meeting space, like a room for board meetings, things like that, but with monitors and computers and workstations. And then a larger room for meeting with up to 60 people, so we can have groups that want to use that for presentations or smaller meetings in that space. And then activities and games room where the pool table, somebody's donated a pool table to us. It's very nice, and we've got a foosball table in there, so a little a place to have a little bit of games. And then there's sort of the kitchen space and a health and wellness room. So that
What'll
room,
be in there?
so we can do small groups. So you could do small classes, arts and crafts. You can have a yoga class, have a
something
fitness
like that.
class.
Mhm.
Sort of an all-purpose room for being flexible to do a lot of different things in there, depending on the kinds of programs that people want to bring to the center and to veterans and their families.
So a lot of cool programs. One of the things that just happened, actually, in the last couple of weeks, we were contacted by Guitar for Vets organization, which is a cool group. I don't know if you know, but basically they provide all the instruments and all of the support, and we were selected as a chapter for Guitars for Vets. So we will eventually have a program to teach veterans how to play guitar. And we're pretty excited about it. And we already have 2 or 3 people who want to be instructors. And we're hoping that we can kick that off before we get too far into the month of June.
Mhm.
All right. But that's the type of program we have. Very innovative, very new, very something that's not typical thought about with veterans, but it's going to gravitate people to us that, would find a way to express themselves or feel comfortable and get to know other people. The COVID has really isolated a lot of human beings and frankly a lot of veterans, because they didn't get out, they didn't talk to one another, very rarely did they see each other. So bringing people out of that shell into a new environment, a new togetherness is going to be a little bit of a challenge, and Guitar for Vets will be something that will be able to do that, because it's fun, it's active, and it's interesting because once we started looking at having people become instructors, we had 2 or 3 people volunteer right away. So
There's another organization off Cape that we connected with through the Falmouth Dog Park, and they reached out to us and said, "Hey, when you're ready, we'd really love to bring some, connect veterans to these dogs that they're training to be service animals.
Service,
Now, I think that the demand for service animals among veterans, among lots of people, but among veterans as companion dogs, is the demand's really high, and there are official programs doing that. But this is a little bit less official program. It's just, again, it's grassroots, an organization who's saying we are adopting dogs out of adoption, situations, adopting them and training them to be companion animals for service members. And so they're doing that. I think it's free for those service members, and we'll figure that out once we're ready to start hosting that. I could see us having connection opportunities right here in Falmouth. So, and I think the one that we're talking about is in Bridgewater.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't want area veterans and their families to have to drive to Bridgewater to do that if they don't have to. If they can connect here with that kind of training opportunity, then, and get a dog to help their family, then we would love to do that right in there too. So the facility itself, we're designing to be as versatile as possible with some, very specific capabilities, like being able to meet and give presentations, like having the Education and Technology Center. We want to have a very small but a little community garden that would be at least a teaching garden for people that want to do home gardening and learn how to do that, have classes and things like that. So we've got a little spot picked out for a small garden for that kind of thing.
It seems like you're open to any good idea that's going to help veterans in one way or another, whether it's service animals or
Guitars.
or guitars.
Yeah.
I think the bottom line for me, and probably Carissa too, just want to help veterans, Bob. And frankly, there's a sea change going on with the VA.
I was going to ask you about, my recollection was a few years ago, or maybe 5, 10 years ago, it had its issues. And I know there was an effort, the prior administration, to try and get it more user-friendly for the veterans. Have they been successful in that?
Well, there's a lot, legislatively, there's been a lot more action to support veterans in the last 2 years than the last 10 years combined.
Okay.
You got the PACT Act, which is dealing with cancer related to the toxic burn pits. You've got the change in Agent Orange and how this compensation is going. They just announced a VA program for life insurance for veterans under the 80 years and under, which is not an expense for veterans. I've had years of veterans at the VA, and I was in South Carolina a week ago. And the model down there is that they're building smaller veteran-like facilities in different areas of the state. Instead of having one area where you go to Providence and get all of the services, they've started this method where they're doing smaller facilities, but having more of them so it's easier for the veteran to get
Not these big veterans hospitals that are, these huge institutions that are
And now with
hard to get
technology,
to.
now with technology, they can stay connected. So the veteran can go to the smaller facility and get connected to a doctor at a larger facility, or get treated, or get prescriptions. I happened to go because I wanted to get a prescription. And I went in very politely, and they gave me the information, and I needed some prescriptions. And they called the people in Brockton, where I get service, and the next day I had all the prescription. So that whole communication process, service project, has really been huge in terms of servicing a lot of people. So those type of programs, we have to stay on top with. So we have to communicate those type of programs to people who are veterans in Falmouth.
Yeah, I attended a presentation by the VA in Providence who came to Hyannis, to the vet center, and the room was packed. Lots of people had lots and lots of questions about various things and making claims, and it was a really nice, informative session. I had to drive to Hyannis for it. As soon as we're ready, they're going to give that same presentation here in Falmouth. So. And there's other groups in at the Providence VA who have said, whenever you want us, we do road shows, and you just let us know where you want your road show, and we'll come to you in Falmouth.
That's wonderful.
Breaking down the isolationism has really been a big factor, and they've made a major improvements with the VA, and that's our role too. Our role is to break down the isolationism and bring people in.
Well, the veterans today are a lot different than they were, 40, 50 years ago. I mean, as far as, obviously what what they've suffered. I mean, all veterans, I mean, if you're doing a conflict, you suffered. But I mean, as a result of Afghanistan and Iraq, I mean, you must see an awful lot of people who are affected by the PTSD and all of
Yeah, absolutely.
all that
I don't
goes
know if you
along
saw
with
the
that.
TV show, it was on last week, 20 years after Iraq. Did you
Yeah,
see that?
well, I know it was the anniversary of it, and there was
Anniversary
an
of it.
awful lot on television about.
It's really
about it.
eye-opening. It's
Yeah.
really eye-opening.
Yeah, and as we said in the beginning, I mean, people don't all, we're not all walking around, you know, with a V
Right.
on our saying that we are veterans,
they
and
need
you
help.
don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
they-
there are veterans among us every day, in every place, in every job, working every kind of job, all shapes and sizes, ages, every demographic. You know, that's the beauty of serving in the military, is it's super diverse, and you meet people from all over the place,
Yeah, it
and
is.
with lots of different perspectives. But you know, when you get out, you don't know who anybody is anymore because nobody's wearing a uniform. And you're right, it's not necessarily like yesterday's veterans, the veterans of 40 years ago, and the veterans who are, you know, the old men wearing their veteran cap, and bless them for doing that, so we can
Yeah.
say,
Right.
thank you for your service, where did you serve, you know, and introduce ourselves. But most of us are, you know, are sitting side by side and wouldn't know unless we struck up a conversation that we're sitting with a fellow veteran.
Yeah.
Do you notice that veterans today are more willing to ask for help? You know, I mean, my recollection of veterans from the World War II and the Korean War was they kept a lot inside, and they just went about their lives, and you might not even know he or she was in service. Do you see that changing a little bit with today's
I tend to be
veterans?
maybe a little more optimistic than is realistic, but I think that culturally there is more. I hope it's true. I feel like culturally there's more acceptance in military culture to ask for help on active duty in the first place, and then certainly after people get out. I think there's, you know, a lot more, in fact, expectation that there are services there. I think more veterans today are getting out and saying, okay, now what are you gonna do for me? Because I still need, you know, some follow-up here. And it depends. I think, again, back to where we started, there are plenty who said, I'm fine. I didn't break a nail. I'm okay. But my friends who really need it, they feel like they might be taking services away from people who need it more, and they're not. There's lots of services available. It's a matter of tapping into them.
Yeah, there are.
And getting the word out to the veterans to know that those services are there
Sure.
for their use, and that's what you
Yeah,
guys are
I think
doing.
having a first-class facility is a step in the right direction, Bob, because the attractiveness, the interest in it, the quality of it brings people. You know, once you see that, then that drives people to it. And then obviously our focus is going to be on execution and having the right programs and making sure everything works. And we're optimistic about having that happen because the support here has been so phenomenal. And we just have a great group of people working hard to pull it all together. And shows like this help a lot, Bob, just being able to tell people what we are and who we are and what's going on and things like that are really important.
So what, if someone wanted to help out and volunteer, what are some of the, I mean, again, it'll be a different story once you're up and running, but, you know, is there something that people who wanted to help now could help with?
Oh yeah, we have I'll answer it, and maybe I may let you follow up on it, but we have an advisory council which is composed of people who work with us on the board and fill a lot of key and important roles. But there's also another level of volunteers that we can call at any time, and they're going to show up and move furniture, clean the gardens, paint, and whatever. So we're actively involved in getting people to do volunteer work with us. And it's a very satisfying group. It was interesting because we had some volunteers come in last Wednesday, and we had 12 contractors there. So that's a lot of contractors. So all the volunteers we had 5 volunteers come in, and they were very organized, very purposeful. And then I followed up with the volunteers that I had talked to, and each one of them said to me, hey, that was really fun. Can I do that again? In other words, they felt satisfied because they were helping. And that's what we try to do. We just want to make sure that people, good. They're not going to spend the whole day doing a project, but they'll do there some functionary type of thing. And Carol Kenny, who's our clerk and also on our board, did an absolute phenomenal job organizing that, because that was a massive organization tech. But getting back to how you can help, virtually, if you want to support a veteran, you can help, and you have a skill set that can help us, whether it's gardening, whether it's painting, whether it's just cleaning, whether it's just being supportive, whether it's helping us at an event. We'll work hard to make sure you have a very satisfying experience. And you do it the same way. You go to our website. You can go to Facebook. I hope everybody goes to Facebook and looks at our Facebook page.
Again, Joe Q Veteran Facebook.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
want to just search it, it'll
Yeah.
come up.
Yeah.
And I
So-
imagine people can donate too, right? You said you were a 501c3.
We
right?
were
So-
going to,
Yeah.
But-
And really getting the word out is one of the best things that can happen. Speaking of Facebook, somebody from a flooring from a flooring company who works for a flooring company happened to see a post on our Facebook page. We didn't go asking for flooring in this case. He saw that we were doing a construction project. He called us and said, hey, I work for this flooring company, and one of the things I get to do is match nonprofit donations up to flooring. And so, do you need any flooring? And we said, yes, we need some luxury vinyl tile in this whole space. And he said, I'll do that. So he lined us up with the completely donated brand new floor and we got to pick the color, and we just had to wait for availability. And that's because of social media. That was a social media connection. So anyone who, if you tell the story is how you help. You tell the story by sharing that, whether it's a social media thing, sketching the articles in the Enterprise and spreading the word there.
I hear there may be another article coming out soon about Joe Q.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
In the Enterprise,
I mean,
think.
the local media has been really great at supporting this, this community effort, and I think that's part of the community effort is spreading the word, telling your neighbor, because it might be your neighbor who's a veteran and you didn't even know, and now that veteran has something to bring to the table, whether it's because they just want to go have that camaraderie, they have a special skill and they want to add that, their next door neighbor's a contractor who was looking for a way to give back. I mean, you just never know. So I think probably the best thing people can do is spread the word.
Yeah.
And ballpark date. I know. You've
2
had
weeks,
some
isn't
challenges.
that the construction
Yeah.
answer?
What do you realistically think?
We were,
when
actually,
people will be
Chris and
able
I
to
were
go
talking
for a
about that
soft opening
before we
of
walked
some
over
sort?
here. So we settled on early summer,
Yeah.
as a possibility. Mind you, we have to dovetail into the contractor's schedule. And as you know, the
And
town
they're
of-
volunteers.
and
so-
they're
right.
volunteers, so as you know, in Falmouth, there's incredible construction projects going on. So we're in this mix and match. That's why we had 14 or 12 contractors come on one specific day, because it all kind of worked on that day. So we're looking at maybe ballpark early summer.
Okay.
All right, and we're hopeful that will happen, and we'll have some major, we'll obviously have some major announcements of that as we go along. But it'll definitely be on our website and also on our Facebook page.
Okay. Well, any closing remarks that you just want to leave us with? I mean, your passion and is intoxicating, to be honest, and I'm sure that people will hopefully get in touch with you and offer some services.
Yeah, this has been great. I have to say a big appreciation to you.
Yeah.
We noticed that we have a lot more people wanting to play in a bocce tournament
Well,
because we had such stellar people as referees.
I was the worst umpire you had, but it was only my first effort. I actually measured the ball from the completely wrong place, right? Yeah, so.
It's a rookie
but
move.
It was a major rookie mistake.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to doing it again next year. And When is that,
We have
that tournament?
September.
In September?
Yep.
You'll be doing it again, you're
Yeah.
expecting? Wonderful.
We already
It's a-
have people signed up.
Yeah, it's a,
Yeah.
it's a great day.
Yeah, it'd be
It's a
good.
lot of fun, great food supplied by
Make it-
local restaurant here.
So I think what I would do with this opportunity is just thank all of our fellow veterans for their service. And I know that personally when people thank me, it's such a privilege to have served, and it was a real honor to have served. And I also think that it's important to recognize there's a lot of ways to serve. And if you didn't wear the uniform or you haven't had the opportunity to, there's so many ways to serve. And people are doing it all around us. Falmouth is, Falmouth knows this. There's community service everywhere you look. And whether you're serving in uniform, first responder style, if you're serving, on volunteer boards, committees, however you get involved in this town. But, I think we thank our fellow veterans for their military service, and we also thank our community for its service, supporting this and all the other similar activities.
Thank you. Falmouth is a wonderful place to live, and it's wonderful. There are so many different opportunities for people to serve, to help, to give of themselves, and this is a perfect example of it. Allan?
I just want to say a recognition to the town meeting members in November of 2021 who voted
19, right? 2019.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
2019.
Well,
Who voted to support the town allowing the old senior center to become a veteran center.
mhm.
That was unprecedented, and we were very pleased that that happened. But so that's an understated happening in our history. But that was really fundamentally a key step. And we can't thank them enough for that support. That support was incredibly, for us, as a young nonprofit, it was really unbelievable.
Absolutely true. Yeah,
It
that's
was-
a good point. That's what
So
started it all.
that
It was
started
the
it all.
town's idea, town's initiative,
Well,
agreeing to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the town supports it.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. Well, again, thank you for your service in the military, and thank you for your service to Falmouth and all you're doing today
Thank you
as
very
well.
much.
And thank you. So
Thanks, Bob.
this is Bob Mascali, and this is Planning for the Future. And we will be having some more programs. Just keep a lookout with Falmouth Community TV. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.